today is Save the U.S. Postal Service, Defend the First Amendment. One of our big educational mobilization efforts to defend the Postal Service. It's been something I've been involved with since 1997. So today I'm going to share with you the history of what is the Postal Service really about. People say, oh, the Postal Service, oh, there's a bunch of people who deliver letters. Oh, they suck because Elon Musk said so. Oh, they don't work hard because why? Because Trump wants to privatize them. You're going to hear the truth about the Postal Service. And you're going to see why our movement educates people on the true nature of an institution that was created by the founding fathers of the United States to defend the First Amendment. The Postal Service was created at one of the most revolutionary phases in world history when people recognized that there were certain inalienable rights that humans had. These founders of the United States in 1787 created an institution, and it was called the United States Postal Service. Now, why did they create this institution? And this institution was not owned by the government. It was actually a quasi-government public organization. And the concept was that if you had the First Amendment, the right to free speech, the right to assemble, that how do you make that real? You can just talk about, oh, we right to free speech. Well, how the fuck do you make that real? The way you make that real is you need infrastructure to enable free speech to take place. So that infrastructure that they created was a United States Postal Service. Now, prior to the revolution, the crown, the monarchy, the monarchs had their postal service. It was the crown's postal service. Believe it or not, Benjamin Franklin was the Postmaster General of the British Crown's Postal Service. And the crown knew there was an emerging revolution coming up. And what they did was they surveilled it. Every letter that was sent among the colonists was opened and was read. They made sure that there was really no free speech, there was no privacy. So when they knew Franklin was involved in the revolution, they threw him out as Postmaster General of the Crown Service. But in 1787, the United States Postal Service was created, very different than the monarchs. When they created the Postal Service, which was the institution that would be the ability for any citizen to send a letter to anyone else for pennies. That was really the bulwark of free speech. That means I could send a letter to Delia for pennies, and he could be in all the way in upstate Washington, and I could be in a peninsula in Florida, and it would make it there. Quite extraordinary. It's really pretty amazing. And if you read about the Postal Service, they sometimes put letters in rockets and they put them over rivers. They had all these ways to do transport, right? Ponies, barges, everything, but they would get a letter, neither sleet nor snow or rain. You've heard the poem, right? And every small town, small village had at least one or multiple these postal centers. But the goal was that institution enabled people to transact mail, political mail. Up until 1970, near 70% of the mail flowing through this infrastructure was political mail. Left wing, right wing, Green Party, Nazi mail, Ku Klux Klan, communists, everyone transacted freely. One key element of the Postal Service, which 99% of Americans do not know existed, was a police force. So here's the Postal Service run by the Postmaster General. Over here was the Inspector General's office, which oversaw the Postal Service to see if they were doing fucked up things like opening the mail. If they did, 22-year sentence in prison. So not only did you have the system, but you had an oversight body which served we the people. My first life with the world of mail in the electronic version was creating email. In 1978, I was, as a 14-year-old, I took the office postal system. Some of you may know in every office, there was ways that you delivered mail. Every office had a little post office. If you worked in a hospital, if you worked in a big institution, and they had ways of delivering mail. They had the inbox, the outbox, the folders, the address book. They had pneumatic tubes. They had carbon copy, blind carbon copy. I was the first in the world to convert that entire system to the electronic version as a 14-year-old intern working at a small medical college, what is now known as Rutgers Medical School. I wrote 50,000 lines of code, named it email, and got the first United States copyright at a time when copyright was the only way to protect software inventions. I am the inventor of email. Regardless of what Wikipedia and the military industrial complex attempt to pilfer the rightful credit to me, the fact remains a 14-year-old kid in Newark, New Jersey invented email. It's all out there. All of this came out when it went into the Smithsonian in 2012. It created a big, quote unquote, a fake controversy. But nonetheless, as someone who created the electronic version of the mail system, all those features, I know the value of the postal system. In 1993, through a series of separate incidents, I won a contest that the White House put forward to automatically analyze email to automatically help customer service for the White House. Remember, up until 1993, very important to understand this, email was not a consumer application. Only organizations used email, which was an electronic version of their interoffice mail system. But in 1993, something important took place. The World Wide Web came, which put a mouse so you could point and click on the internet. It was a revolution. If you remember when HTTP and HTML came out. So after that, people copied my email program, all the design aspects, and they created the web-based version of that. Companies like Hotmail, companies like AOL, Eudora started doing that. And so email went from being a business application to becoming something that was offered to consumers. In 1997, something quite extraordinary took place. Email volume exceeded postal mail volume. It was a very important point. Postal mail volume was exceeded by email. So people who were sending letters, greeting cards, contracts, and all the stuff through physical mail moved it to email. Email became the bulwark of business and consumer transactions. In 1997, I had built this company. After I won the White House contest, I spun off a company. It was really one of the first AI companies in the world to automatically read an email, figure out the response, and send it out. We used to lower customer service costs. I had Nike as a customer, American Express, Citigroup, all these large companies used EchoMail to lower their customer service costs. And if you go to echomail.com, you can read about that. That company I grew to around $250 million company. In 1997, when I saw this, because of my interest in freedom and as an activist, I contacted the Postal Service and I said, look, you guys are in a dangerous situation. You must create a public version, like you have the postal physical paper system, you must create an electronic equivalent. Why? Right now, look what's happening. 1997, citizens were moving their mail communications, which were protected by this police force, to private companies, Hotmail, AOL. And when they signed up for the terms and conditions, which says those companies own your email. They can open your letters. They can open your email. They can open your contracts. They can open your love letters. They can do whatever the fuck they want with it. I said, this is dangerous. The reason the founders created this very powerful institution was they didn't want monarchs opening their email. And now you have oligarchs, Microsoft, other companies now having the right to open your letter. You guys get what I'm saying? So I met with senior executives at the Postal Service. I said, look, to save the Constitution, you must create a public version of email. You'll never have to be worrying about getting funding from Congress. You can be sustainable. People pay it, but the email you offer will be protected by the laws of Congress. I was 29 years old, and these guys looked at me, oh, who are you? What do you know? You're a 29-year-old kid. We have 500,000 workers. We're bigger than Walmart. They said, get the fuck out of our office. These idiots were not innovators like Franklin. They had become bureaucrats. They had no idea what the fuck I was talking about because they didn't care. They're just there collecting their paychecks, thinking they're running an institution that transmits these paper around. They had no idea that institution was set up to protect the fucking First Amendment. And the Postal Service workers, with everyday brainwashing, they think, oh, I just deliver mail. I just deliver mail. And everyone says I suck and I'm making too much money. So they've been inundated. It's not their fault. It's the massive propaganda. In recent times, since 1997 now, the swarm wants to privatize the Postal Service. And the first step in doing this was Ronald Reagan. In 1980, Ronald Reagan, because of all the donors that he got, gutted the most profitable parts of the Postal Service, which is really overnight mail, and he gave it to his friends at FedEx and DHL. So they privatized pieces by FedEx and DHL starting to deliver overnight mail. That was a beginning. In recent times, Donald fucking Trump and Steve Mnuchin, the Zionist cocksucker who ran the Department of Commerce and Treasury, they have wanted to bring the Postal Service under the Department of Commerce. Why? Why do you think? Because once it's no longer quasi-public, they can control it. The government can also start opening up physical mail. They already watch all of our communications because Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and all these guys are dependent on the government. So they have given backdoor portals, which is what our lawsuit exposed when I was thrown off Twitter in courtroom testimony, I was the one who discovered that the government has an unholy backdoor portal. And we exposed that in October of 2020, which Fucker Carlson, Glenn Greenwald, all intentionally concealed. They waited until 2 years later, the so-called Twitter files, which was nothing but the tip of the iceberg of what I discovered, which they intentionally concealed. And if you look what's happened since 1997 to what we discovered in our historic lawsuit on winbackfreedom.com, we discovered that private companies not only can open letters, but private companies have created an unholy alliance with government that they will surveil people on every message you post, who's posting it, and give that information back to government. But the bottom line is that the First Amendment has been destroyed. And the last vestiges of the First Amendment exist when you send a physical letter. There is no fucking First Amendment anymore. And it was done because the fucking Postal Service didn't do their fucking job. There is no public infrastructure to protect we the people. There is none. Amazon takes advantage of the United States Postal Service. Amazon's prices would not be that low. Amazon reaps billions of dollars of profit using this public infrastructure. All right. So these guys thought I was dumb, stupid, that we're in the physical mail business, but they had no idea they're in the communications business to defend the First Amendment. That's actually the business they're in. And so if a new medium comes, you must put it still within that rubric to still protect citizens. That's what Franklin did. That's what the founders did. Our movement is a force. It is a force that teaches people how to think critically. We empower people with system thinking, so you can transform everything inside and outside of you. That's what we do. Yes, someone like me, I was fortunate to get all this education, can empower you, but ultimately you have to do the work. So what do we have? Look at all these solutions we have. And remember, we are delivering these solutions independent of big government, independent of big businesses, independent of big universities, independent of big pharma. All of those four groups are all corrupt. And anything coming from there is always going to be corrupt. So we have to go bottoms up. Look at all these solutions we have. We have the Systems Health Education Program. We have the Clean Food Certification, Cytosol, and we are creating new medicines, all bottoms up. We are doing this on our own. Because of the Cytosol platform, because of the Open Science Institute, our movement, independent of all these guys, is going and solving these problems because we can do it faster, cheaper, better, and safer. We do our own research, we create our own medicines, and our movement will deploy out to the inner cities to people directly. So today, one of the solutions is to talk about the fact that we need to mobilize working people. And for nearly 30 years, I've been talking about the power of the US Postal Service as the inventor of email and why it must be defended. Many Postal Service workers don't even know the history of the Postal Service. They don't even know the fact that they are actually the front bulwark to defend the First Amendment. Our movement, Truth, Freedom, Health, is going to do now a campaign on the ground. July 26, 1787 is when the Postal Service was established. So we're going to do mass action on the ground. We're going to ask all of our warrior scholars to get on the ground, wherever you are. We're going to do a live Zoom and tell people, get on the ground, go to your local Postal Service, educate your Postal Service. And this is a warning, why we must save it. Everything I've talked about is in this flyer. And you can get people to get this flyer. The Postal Service and the infrastructure they have is the future of free speech. And if Donald fucking Trump, you're listening right now, when I had that 2-hour meeting with you, you said, oh, you're the smartest guy in the room. You're amazing. You're MIT. I love MIT. What can I do for you? And I didn't want anything from you, President Trump, but I do want something from you. Why don't you make me the Postmaster General? Why don't you make me the chairman of the Postal Service? And I will deliver real free speech back to the American people. We will take the entire Postal Service infrastructure and convert it to mesh networks. It will have its own independent network by the people for the people. And we will make sure that social media platforms by the people for the people and email are within that purview. Independent of Facebook, independent of all the social media companies, independent of your fuck friend, Elon Musk. That network would be our network, free. And communication between that network would be protected by those same laws that no one could interfere with. This is the breakthrough of the solution that I'm proposing. Servers would be at each of these locations, and through that network, we would transact our mail, our social media, independent of Facebook, Twitter, etc. That would be a true people's network, not owned by a private company, but owned by we the people. Postal Service workers across the United States need to become aware of this and be ready to seize the means of communication on behalf of the people. They need to say, holy shit, I'm the bulwark of the First Amendment. I should have the right to strike, and I'm going to fight on behalf of the American people. It's the First Amendment, and the Postal Service are one and the same. And this is why the elites, Elon fucking Musk said, we must privatize the Postal Service. Trump wants to privatize it. This is it, guys. That's the last vestige of free speech left. To all the American people listening, we live in dangerous times. We've moved from monarchs to oligarchs. And by the way, Bernie Sanders and AOC ain't going to help you fight oligarchs because they're part of the oligarchy. The only force that's going to help us fight the oligarchy and seize the means of production, seize the means of communication is a movement for truth, freedom, health. We delivered on the Fire Fauci campaign. We delivered on saving hundreds of millions of people's lives during COVID. We delivered on exposing election fraud. And it is our movement that is the only force that is going to win back free speech. And to all people across the globe, understand that this is not only in the United States. Most postal services all over the world are the front face of what could be true free speech. The Postal Service is a last front-facing bulwark of free speech. And I, the inventor of email, have the solution to make sure free speech is restored in the United States. And it is through independent mesh network by the people for the people. And all these platforms must be run by the Postal Service. When you look at postal workers, have some respect for them. These guys work their butt off. And they are the offline last vestiges of the First Amendment. And our movement is going to defend the Postal Service and has solutions to take it to another level. Again, Donald Trump, I'm giving you an offer. Make me Postmaster General or make me Chairman of the U.S. Postal Service, and I will restore free speech for the American people. Thank you, everyone.